How often has this happened to you? It's time to party like it's 1999, so you pull out your trusty iMac G3 to play some Quake. But wait! The cable on your keyboard has pulled apart, and now there are scary-looking wires sticking out of it. As these keyboards get older, more and more of them are having problems with the wire pulling out. The good news is it's almost as easy to repair them as it is to break them in the first place. In this quick fix video, I'll show you how to fix the cable on your iMac G3 keyboard in less time than it takes to rent a movie from Blockbuster. So if you've already looked up instructions for opening one of these keyboards, you've no doubt noticed how much attention is paid to the plastic clips along the front edge. Turns out they're almost impossible to remove. I don't know what Apple made them out of, but you're more likely to break them than to remove them. I've seen instructions that varied from using small, sharp knives to try to pry them apart, all the way to simply saying, rip the whole top off completely and use Scotch tape to put it back together. Now, I don't know about you, but I dislike resorting to things like glues and tapes when I'm reassembling my vintage computers. So I've developed a simple technique that'll get us inside and fix our cable without so much as leaving a mark on the outside of the case. Let's begin. Today we're using a pair of side cutters, a number 1 Phillips screwdriver, a spudger, which in this case is a guitar pick, and a single wire tie. Begin by setting those aside and flip the keyboard upside down. On the bottom here, we'll note that there's 4 screws in the corners. There's one at each shoulder and one directly beneath the USB ports. Now at a glance, these might look like the same screw, but as we take them out, you'll notice that they're a little bit different. And this is important because if you put them in the wrong place, you're likely to crack the plastic. So number 1 here at the shoulder has got a built-in washer, and you'll see it also has a very fine thread. Set that aside and remove the screw directly behind it. And this one, we'll see, has a much coarser thread as well as a loose washer that likes to hang around down inside the screw valley as we remove it. And if you're very careful, you can bring it out with the screw, just like that. Now this one here, if I compare it to the other one, you'll notice it has a much thicker thread. Keep on going here with the screws coming out. And just set them out in the order you removed them to make sure they go back in the right place. Now once we've got the screws out, flip the keyboard over and we have a look at this plastic surround. So from the top side, we simply insert our spudger into the gap at the back and work it along to loosen up the plastic. And we're not going to pull this all the way up. We're just going to get enough room here to work under. To help out, I'm going to slip a sponge under the edge here, just enough to keep it up and out of the way. Now, everything we're concerned with is directly under this little plastic strip here. So we start from one end and gently lift it up. And if we're very careful, it might just come off in one piece. If you need a bit of help, that spudger from earlier is the perfect tool to coax it up in the tricky spots. So don't be afraid to just insert it into a gap, slide it along here, and then lift up. And sure enough, there is our strip. This can just go aside for now. Try not to stick it to anything. And then pull out the power switch while you're in here so that it doesn't go for a wander and end up getting forgotten. Now, the area that we're most concerned with is this little plastic tab here, and it's held by 2 screws. Again, these are a number 1 Phillips. And thankfully, they're a different color from the ones on the bottom, so when you take them out, it'll be abundantly clear which one's which. Simply set these ones aside as well. And then lift the cover off of the cord. Now you'll see there's a little channel in the plastic here, and that matches up with a piece of rubber that was originally intended to keep the wire from pulling out. But we can see how well that's worked, can't we? This piece of plasticky rubber has hardened with age, and it's no longer squeezing the wire tight, so just a sharp tug will pull it right through. But we need to get our wire back through there if we're going to secure it. So set this piece aside for the moment and have a good look at the end of our wire. This frayed bit of metal here is not actually anything to be concerned about. That's just the RF shielding, the outermost layer of the wire. All of these wires are the ones that actually carry the keyboard power and signals, and they're still intact. So all we need to do is brush this wire nice and smooth so it's as flat as it can be. And then we take our piece of rubber and we just slowly twist it and coax it over those pieces of wire. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay if it looks a little funny at this stage. We just need to get it over the insulation, and then we can slide it along. And now it's back in place, just like that. Now that alone already looks pretty good, but something tells me if we leave it like that, the next sharp tug is going to pull the wire right back out again. So that's why we also have a wire tie. We're going to wrap this around the cord very near to the end, just a couple of millimeters, in fact, from the end of that, so that we can give it a little extra hold to make sure it stays put. So go ahead and tighten this down, and make sure it's as tight as you can get it. You don't want this to come loose later on, because ideally this will be the last time anyone goes inside this keyboard for another 20 years. So make sure you're just about at the edge of that insulation, just only a few millimeters before the end, otherwise you're not going to fit it back in the case. And when you're sure you've got it in the right spot, just about like that, go ahead and tighten it down. Now, having done that, we cut off the excess right at the edge there, make it nice and small. And now we can go ahead and slip it back in the case. All of these wires here, they're going to go underneath the edge of the keyboard mechanism, and as much as we can under the circuit board itself to get us a little bit more room. Space is tight in here, and we need to use it wisely. So fold it, shove it, twist it, whatever you have to do to get it in that little space down there. We want this little plastic bit with its flat side to be facing down, and with that wire tie we added to be just over the little lip behind it. That way it can hang on for us and make sure our cord doesn't go anywhere. Now all we need to do is put our cover back in, and that keyboard cable is affixed. So there we have it. If you look behind, our wire tie is just outside of the case. It is just behind that little plastic holder, and it's going to make sure our wire doesn't pull through. So grab the short silvery gold screws, not the black screws, and put those right back in, right where you took them from. Then grab your power button before it gets forgotten about and slide it back under all the way to the front of the keyboard there. There's a little spot that it fits into. It should nestle down in there. It should have a nice squishy feeling to it. It should want to stay in position there. And then all you need is your plastic strip. Just lays down over top of this whole mechanism here, and it roughly centers around the power button. And now you can clip your plastic back on. Just go all the way along the back and the sides and the channel to make sure that it's flush and nothing's sticking up. And you're reassembled. Time to put the screws in and try it. That cord is affixed just as though it came from the factory, and barring a severe tugging, should never come out again.
And here we are. The keyboard might be 20 years old, but it only took us 10 minutes to get its cord looking like new, and we didn't even need to resort to tape or glue to do it. So with one more keyboard saved, I'm going to go back to fragging aliens. Till next time.